I have had the experience, as I think many of you have had the experience, of dealing with people who could not tap for themselves. And you had them imagine the tapping. How many have had that experience? I'm curious. Could we have a microphone for Collie? What was the result? Just give her the microphone.
The result is the same thing if I'm really tuned in and believing it. It seemed to be about my own acceptance and the person's trust of me.
Oh, interesting. But as long as in your perception, as long as you had the belief, etc., they could imagine the tapping, and you'd get the result?
Yes.
Okay. Any different than if you'd actually physically tapped? If it was a slower, faster, or can you tell?
Faster.
Faster. Okay. Did you have the same experience, Nancy?
No.
Okay. Who else raised their hand on that? Go ahead. Back here, Lee Poulos.
I had a woman with severe claustrophobia having an MRI. There was no way she could tap inside the Sicard tube, as she called it, and she imagined it correcting reversal, doing the tapping. It worked like a charm.
Wonderful, wonderful. I have not had lots of experience doing that because it's easy to tap, and most people can tap, and so it's appropriate to tap, you know, if you get such results with it. But I was in Denver in December. I had the entire audience tapping for pain of one kind or another, physical discomfort. And one lady wasn't getting much results, and in fact there were several people, and they actually came up on stage with me at the end. There were 7 or 8 on stage, and one lady, in fact some of you are from that seminar, you remember this, that workshop, could not tap herself physically because she had some arthritic problems with her joints, and it hurt her to actually tap. So I asked her just to imagine the tapping. How many of you from Denver remember that? A few of you do, okay. And so we went through, and there were a bunch of people there, and most of them got some kind of result, as typically happened. But when I came to her, she also got her result, and yet she did not physically tap at all. Now I find that interesting. What I have never had the opportunity to do is to take a whole group and have the whole group imagine the tapping. Guess what we're going to do?
Awesome.
Now I have no idea what the result is going to be, but I want to prime you a little bit if I can. We are not looking for brand new scientific findings here. This is not a controlled experiment. What I'm going to ask you to do, and I'll instruct you about locating some physical discomforts, etc. And we'll take a few minutes to do that. But once we've done that, and I'm going to have you tap it first without tapping. And I'm going to lead you through that and have you do it mentally. And so I'm going to begin with having you write down some kind of a number for whatever the physical issue may be, and then you'll do a number before and after, and we'll have some discussion about that. And I'm most interested in how that is. We need to be quite congruent and quite clear whether or not we have had a change or not. Okay. But I'm going to find that quite interesting. So here's what we do. Close your eyes for the moment. Just close your eyes, sit back, relax for a second, and take an inventory of your body. And just notice if there are any physical discomforts. Is there a headache? Is there tension in the neck or shoulders, the back, the joints? Is there some kind of itching? Is there a breathing problem, sinuses, asthma? Something like that? Foot problem? Any kind of physical discomfort whatsoever, just notice them and then pick out, if you have one, what you might consider to be the worst one, the most prevalent one. And if there's a few or tied, just pick one. And by the way, Carol, would you pick something other than your legs? Okay. And so just do that. And by the way, as I said before, if one of these seems to be the impossible, like it's just impossible to take care of this tapping, don't eliminate it because you think it's impossible. Okay, you can include it. Not that we're going to take care of the impossible, but we don't want to eliminate it just because you think it's impossible. Okay. Now, if you need to, now open your eyes for a second. How many of you located some kind of physical discomfort, just so I can get an idea? Okay. How many did not? Some of you did not. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have 3. Okay. For those of you who did not, you can also find one. And this is how you do that, without damaging yourself. Without damaging yourself, you can take your neck and you can move it to a certain point. So I can move it back and forth 2 or 3 times, so you kind of loosen it up a little bit. And eventually you'll get, you get it loosened up. Then try to move it. You'll find probably one side is harder to move than the other. And you get to a point which might be, you get to, without damaging yourself, get to a point, well, that's a 5. But remember exactly where that is. Exactly where that is. So after we're done, we're going to need to know if you're going to go the same distance for it, okay? Exactly where that is. And if you don't want to do that, you can do this, okay? You can create a pane if you want to, okay? But for those of you who don't need, there's only 3 or 4 of you who might want to do that. The rest of you have already located a physical discomfort of some kind, okay? Now, if you would, with that physical discomfort, depending on what it is, you may have to stand up and kind of go like this. Because what I'd like to have you do is to, if it's a physical discomfort, whether or not you move, that's fine. Put down a number for it on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is the worst it's ever been, and 10 is the worst it's ever been, and 0 is nothing. Estimate some number for it, a SUDS number, and write that down. If it is a joint nature or some nature where if you moved it would get worse, if you need to, stand up and move to a certain point, or do whatever you need to do, or whatever it is to exaggerate to go a certain point. Remember where that is, because after we're doing this, we're going to recreate that, okay, wherever that might be. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to walk you through this imagination thing. I'm going to tell you in advance when we're done, and I ask you to evaluate where you are. It's one thing to evaluate what the level of the pain is or the discomfort. But something else often happens, which I want to alert you to. Sometimes the discomfort will change nature. The throbbing headache. Something will change location. It'll go from here to here. Okay? The neck pain will go from here to the shoulder. Sometimes what you call a pain will now be a stiffness. So you want to notice if it changes either nature or location, one or the other. Okay? Because either one of those changes is something that we can use. Now, I am going to walk you through this in this imaginary way, and we're going to do the EFT shortcut, which is here to here. We are going to purposely eliminate this point. I'll tell you why later. We're going to purposely eliminate. We will not be mentally tapping on this point right here. Okay? So I'm going to go here, 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 here. Skip that. Okay. With your imagination only, you can just listen to my words. Okay? And we're going to go through the setup, the psychological reversal part of it first. So just listen to me. You're saying it as I'm saying this. You're going to be listening anyway and saying it to yourself. But anyway, just tune into me for a second. Even though I have this discomfort, and by the way, you may want to put in some other phrase for discomfort if there's something more specific that would be useful for you. Even though I have this discomfort, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I have this, fill in your own blank, discomfort, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I have this discomfort, I love and forgive myself for everything I may have done to contribute to it. Even though I have this discomfort, I love and forgive myself and anyone else who may have contributed to it. Okay, now open your eyes and watch me, okay? Don't tap. Imagine the tapping as I'm doing it. This discomfort, boom, 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 boom. This discomfort, boom, 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 boom. This discomfort, boom, 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 boom. This discomfort, boom, 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 boom. This discomfort, boom, 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 boom. This discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Okay. Close your eyes. Take inventory. Notice the discomfort. Just notice if it's changed at all. If you need to move a little bit to see if it's changed, you have to go farther to know if it's changed location or intensity or nature or anything like that. And I'm curious, how many did anybody notice a change? So hold your hands up high for a second. I just want to get, that's roughly, I would say, is that about 2/3, would you guess? Look around. 2/3, 60% maybe? Does that sound right to you as you look around? Okay. What did you notice? Could you give Gary the microphone? What did you notice? I mean, by the way, if your discomfort is discussable, discuss it. If it isn't, then don't. Okay?
I just, at a certain point when I turned my head, there was discomfort in my neck.
Oh, you were the ones that had no
Yeah, but
discomfort
it was about a 3 or 4, and now it's gone.
Now it's gone. Okay. Who else raised? Did you raise your hand, Sharon? Okay.
Yes, I had this neck and shoulder pain, and it was about a 7, and it went down to about a 4 or 5. But the interesting thing is that I noticed it on the word about forgiveness. I noticed it right then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Interesting. Go ahead. Give it to Gloria.
I also had pain in turning my neck, and I really felt the tapping and the first 3 points so strong. The rest not really. And although the discomfort's still there, I can turn my neck further.
Okay.
I noticed how far I could turn it, and I can turn it further.
Okay. Who else? Go ahead, Kelly. Give it to Kelly.
Well, I was tapping for a kind of a throat closure, very subtle, which I only rated at a 3, but I wanted to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we did it, particularly again on the forgiveness part, I felt a little streamer of energy go out to my chin, and it's here right now. It's not done yet. It's there, but it's so distinctly moved.
It moved.
Oh, yes.
All right, very important. Thank you for that. I'm going to get some more comments in a moment, but I want to take off on that for a second if I can. I will with great frequency when I'm dealing with somebody, especially if somebody comes to me and has what appears to be an intensely emotional issue that I know just bringing it up is they're going to have a lot of emotional pain and tears and discomfort just from the emotional point of view. I will often ask them before we ever start on that particular issue, the emotional issue, do you have any physical discomforts? Oh my stiffness in my neck, that's common. Or I have this headache, that's common. Things like that. And what I will do is I will start tapping for the physical discomfort and completely ignore the emotional issue for the moment. And often it will just start moving. I call it chasing the pain. It'll go from here to here to here to here to down to here, and I chase it all over the place. In Maine, I think we did with one lady, and she ended up with her fingers being numb. Okay, and we took care of that, etc. But anyway, when we're all done with that, then I will ask them about their emotional issue. And often, not always, but often, I'll get a response like, well, it wasn't that big an issue. I say, well then, okay, then say I had a miscarriage. Well, I had a miscarriage. Okay? And somehow we're done with it. It's like the emotional issue and the physical issues are so linked, and it's so obvious from this. But I call that chasing the pain. It's a great tool to use many times. Just chase the pain, chase the pain, chase the pain. Who else had some experience? Why don't we ask Naomi here?
Mine was wonderful.
Well, that's good. Say it again.
Awesome. My sinuses were inflamed, and so I did the internal tapping, and I started out at a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was finished with one round, I was at a 2 because the left sinus is fine now. Now I've only got the right one to do.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, great. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Who else had an experience? Go ahead, Betsy.
I noticed the shift when you got to the second portion of I forgive myself for what I or anyone else had done.
Mm-hmm.
That brought up a lot of emotion for me, and it really shifted
Yes.
after that. So actually, I'm very curious how come you put that in.
Oh, I figured somebody would ask that. Remember, if you will, what I said here a little while ago is that in fact, I didn't say that actually. I'm going to say it now. One of the things that we're going to do as this seminar unfolds is we're going to start looking at the existing beliefs about how this process works, the existing technologies, the existing things that we're believing in about it, and we're going to start critically looking at them. Some things that I put out in EFT, some things that Roger Callahan has put out and other people have put out, we need to look at them very critically. And one of those is, there's this standard phrase that we use. And I've been playing around with that phrase for some time, and I've had many people say, as soon as you said this, like I was just dealing with Jarvin here at the break, and we were doing something with your neck, right? And in the moment we started getting into some other issues that were more emotionally charged for him, they're more on point, we started to make some headway. You're seeing that as well. So you will see that happen more and more and more as this time unfolds. But anybody else with physical? Bruce, here.
Gary, can you repeat?
Well, wait.
Can you repeat that third affirmation? The third one that
I made it up.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
I know you
but I use it often enough. Let me recreate it best as I can. By the way, this will be on the tapes. Okay, so you write it down if you want to. Even though I have this blank, I love and forgive myself for anything I may have done to contribute to it, or anything I love and forgive anyone else who may have contributed to it. But you will find as time goes on, as you start using your intuition and your creativity, you will find more and more ways to do this. In fact, you will find as this seminar unfolds that I will often, as we're deeper into a session, start using reframing affirmations, total reframes. Things like, even though what I'm really doing is blaming someone else for what is my own anger, you know, and that does not land at all when you first start with somebody. But after you're doing the tapping and you start to make headway, the affirmations start landing like that. I mean, the reframes start landing like that. You'll notice that. At least I hope you'll notice that before we're done. Yes, back here to Peg, if you would. Well, that's not Peg, it's Marilyn. Go ahead, Marilyn.
I started out with very tight shoulders, and it was really the affirmations, I believe, that started to make that melt, and then it started to, what you were saying before, transfer to the throat area, and I became aware of emotional feeling. I don't really know what it was, but I did notice that transfer.
Okay. So in your perception then, it wasn't necessarily imagining the tapping. That may or may not have been a contributor.
I think it was during the affirmations that was creating that melting sensation.
All right. We're here to learn. I don't know the answers to this. This is an experiment, by the way. Go ahead and take it back to Peggy back there.
Well, I really wanted to ask a question, too, because I just had a little stuffiness in my nose, and it was like 3, and so I did it, and it just was gone. But I wondered if I wasn't watching you tap, if I had my eyes shut and was tapping on myself rather than watching you tap. Because
I don't know the answer to that.
It'd be pretty powerful if you could just shut your eyes and just be tapping during the day.
I don't know. I have had people who have just shut their eyes and tapped during the day. I've had people who have tapped while they were driving without shutting their eyes and have reported some results. I've just never done it in the more controlled, they're all anecdotal reports, and so I have no way of knowing how often it happens.
Yeah, it was just interesting because it was good watching you tap, but I thought, oh, I'd like to know what I'd be doing if I'd just be tapping myself and not listening to you boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and I did that. By the way, here comes some sound, right? So now we're tapping maybe with sound. I don't know the answer. All I do know is you didn't physically tap, and 60% of the people here had a noticeable result. One round. Okay? Nahoma here, please.
I spend a fair amount of time with healers, and one of the things I've learned from them is that you can train yourself to move the energy in your body or move energy from outside through your body, and you can do it in through anything, out through anything, and in any pattern through your body. And I think what we're doing when we're tapping with our fingers or without our fingers is simply moving energy the way any healer would.
And I wouldn't, Nahoma, want you or anybody else to get the idea that maybe your intention has something to do with this.
Oh, of course.
I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want anybody to get that idea.
The healer's intention is what begins the process. So, totally agree.
Yeah, William Tiller will be here tomorrow. He will talk about intention from a scientific point of view. If you think about it for a second, if I took this mug which had some water in it, and with my intention I tried to move it, I don't know how to do that. I'm not saying I can't do it, I just don't know how. And chances are if we spent the rest of the 3 days in the seminar I tried to do that, chances are it wouldn't move. Okay? However, energy is not dense physical thing like this. Energy has no weight. I don't think it has any weight. It has no mass. It's just energy. Okay? And that would be much easier to move with one's intention. wouldn't it? Okay. I just point that out. Again, we're exploring things here, but it's interesting that we can all tap here using basically our intention. Whether it was my intention or your intention or both, I don't know, but we did not physically tap, and we got some results, didn't we? Okay, now, if you would, we're going to do another round of this. Remember, I don't want you to tap this point. I will tell you why later, either in your imagination or anything else. Okay. Don't do this. Just watch me do it, okay? We're going to do some more imaginary tapping. You just listen to me as I beat your imagination with my words. Even though I still have some of this discomfort left, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I still have some of this discomfort left, I love and forgive myself for everything I'm doing to keep her around. I really don't need this. I'm just keeping it somehow. Don't know why it's there. But I love and forgive myself regardless of the fact that it's there. It's there for a reason, but I don't need the reason anymore. Remaining discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Remaining discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Remaining discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Remaining discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Remaining discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Remaining discomfort, boom, 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 boom. Okay, I neglected to have you give a SEDS number to your previous level, but I'm going to ask you to guess for the moment if you've had any movement, any additional movement as a result of that round. Raise your hand. Anybody who's noticed some additional movement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Of those originally, how many of your issues the first time you did it went to 0? So you didn't have anything to. What's that from? Okay. Okay. How many of those who made no movement the first time made some movement this time? Oh, we got a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Would you give the microphone to Craig back there? Could you discuss what it was, Craig?
Yeah, the first time I didn't feel any movement. The second time, especially, again, when you were doing when it got to the forgiveness part, but also tapping this last point under the arm, that's when I really felt energy move really quickly through my whole body.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it was not only my lower back, but I felt a rush overall.
Okay. Over here. Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, I didn't actually have any response to the first round, but to the second round, the reversal really hit me.
This is a thing in your stomach. Is this what you were working with?
Yeah.
Okay. Before you talk about it on the phone, can we discuss it now?
Yeah.
Okay. On the phone, you talked to me. In fact, you called me from the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And you said it was almost constant. And earlier today, you said it was a 4. Okay. So when you started, was it a 4 today?
It had gone up. It was about a 5, 6.
About a 5, 6, and then it stayed there the first round.
Yeah.
And then after the first round, after that second round, then it went down to currently a what?
It's currently about 3.
All right. Okay. Would you ask Silka to hold the microphone for you? Because I'd like to have you do something for me, if you would. Okay. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. What I'd like to have you do is go through the reversal process far more emphatically. I'm going to literally have you yell it. Okay? But I'm going to also have you physically tap as well. Okay? So, right here with me. Find the sore spot. You got it?
Yep.
Okay. Even though I still have some of this stomach pain,
even though I still have some of this stomach
I
pain,
deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and
completely accept myself. Even though I still have some of this stomach pain,
even though I still have some
I
of this stomach
deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely
accept myself. Even though I still have some of this stomach pain,
even though I still have this stomach
I
pain,
love myself.
I love myself.
I forgive myself for everything I've done to contribute to it.
Everything I've done to contribute to
it. And I let all my guilt,
and I let all my guilt,
my fears,
and
my anger out of the way.
Anger out of the way.
Okay. Now say remaining pain.
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 I didn't mean to do that. Remaining pain.
Remaining pain.
Is it still a, what was it, 3?
No, it's gone down. It's about 1.5.
Okay. Okay, now we could probably get it down to 0, but I wanted to make a point, if I could. Thank you so much for sharing that for me, okay, and going through all that. You didn't expect me to have you do that, I know. But quite often, if we're not making headway on an emotional issue or a physical issue, etc., the big culprit is almost always reversal. Almost always. And so what I will have people do is just yell that thing and do different versions of it. Even though I don't deserve to get over this, which I didn't do with you, or even if it's not safe to get over this, so on and so forth, and do it emphatically, etc. I have had many occasions where we just stop, and then we do it emphatically, bingo. The resistance is out of the way, and down we go. Now, we didn't get it completely, of course, but if we did another round or two, chances are we would. Okay. As an aside here, I spoke with Richard over the next 2 days of the seminar, and shortly after it went to the 1.5, it went all the way to 0, which was unusual for him, and it stayed 0 the entire seminar, except for one brief little episode where it came up to a 4, but then went right back down. I then called him 2 weeks later. He lives in the United Kingdom, and I wanted to know how it has been, and he said basically it's been a 0, and it's been a 4 to 5 as long as he can remember, for at least 10 years. Now, the point I want to make here is that this prior to this event where he did the reversal correction very emphatically, as you saw. Prior to that, he would do the tapping and he would get temporary relief and it would go right back up. But with the emphatic reversal correction, it went all the way down to 0, and it basically stayed there except for times when he's under stress. And then it will show up almost like his Achilles heel, almost like his barometer, almost like that's the way he knows when he has physical stress. His stomach will start bothering him. And what he does to take care of that, and it only takes moments, is relies upon a technique you're going to see a little later in these tapes having to do with constricted breathing. He just notices his breathing is constricted. He taps for his constricted breathing. The constricted breathing goes away, and so does the stomach process, the stomach, discomfort. And so it goes. So basically, he's down to 0 all the time instead of 4 to 5 all the time. And the pivotal point is having done that reversal correction very emphatically as I had him do it. And who else was it? Rosemary, did you raise your hand? Okay. Did you give her the microphone?
I just felt a release.
Bring it a little bit away from your
tension and pain was in my upper back and neck. And I felt respiratory release.
Respiratory release. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not something you were tapping for to begin with?
No.
Okay.
No, but I just seemed to breathe easier.
Okay. Well, we don't permit extra benefits to occur.
Okay, I'll take it back.
You have to keep your respiratory thing. All right. Go ahead, back here with Alex, please. Alexander,
Raise your hand. I'm just curious whether people were passively watching you tap or also imagining tapping themselves.
Yes. From my looking out at them, I was wondering what they were doing myself. I think some were just kind of watching me. How many of you were actively, emotionally imagining vividly the tapping on yourself? How many were just kind of listening to me? I'm just curious. I mean, it's okay if you were. I'm just curious. Nancy, go ahead. Give her the microphone.
I wasn't able to do both at the same time. The first time you did it, I had my eyes closed and I was able to imagine the tapping on myself. But this time when I had my eyes open watching you, I couldn't do both things at the same time.
Okay. It's interesting. And of course, John? Yeah. Back here to John.
I was a kind of an in-between statistic because after the first round, I did it myself about 3 or 4 more times on my sinus congestion.
I didn't ask you to do that.
Right? Yes! And
I mean, that's taking awesomeness too far.
When I was just watching, it was a dud. But when I privately did it, I was just way into exactly what I was doing, a lot of focused attention. And from I'd say a 4 to a 2, 3 to a 1, something like that.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm sorry. Right, Jennifer? Right here.
Gary, I had a very interesting experience because I was working on a fibromyalgia trigger point that only hurts if I touch it.
Mm-hmm.
The first round, I started at an 8, and it felt like it stayed at an 8. But by time we were starting the second round and I rechecked it, it had gone down to about a 5.
Mm-hmm. How many of you have noticed, by the way, either emotionally or physically, when you're dealing with your clients, you get some kind of delayed reaction once in a while, like half an hour later or something like that, or 10 minutes later something happens? Okay. I don't know why that is.
It was very nice.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why that is, but just notice the other people that are around you said just because your client is not necessarily making immediate headway by their report doesn't mean they're not making headway, because 10 minutes later they can be going, you know. Okay. Now, keep the same issues if you will, or if you want to switch into another physical, if you've already taken care of that one, you want to do something else, that's fine too. Now we're going to physically tap. We're going to physically tap. Again, we're going to eliminate this point. And I'll tell you why in a bit. Okay? So right here with me, okay? Even though I still have some of this pain, this discomfort, I deeply and completely accept myself. A little more emphasis, please. Even though I still have some of this discomfort, I deeply and completely accept myself. I love and forgive myself for anything I may have done to cause it. Even though if it's not apparent to me, I am so powerful I cause everything, including my own problems. Right here. Okay? This discomfort. This discomfort. This discomfort. This discomfort. This discomfort. This discomfort. Remaining discomfort. Remaining discomfort. Remaining discomfort. Remaining discomfort. Remaining discomfort. Remaining discomfort. Okay. Again, like a bad boy, I did not have you do a SUDS level before we began. But anyway, please take inventory and tell me as a result of that how many of you, if any, have had noticeable changes as a result of that tapping. Okay. How many of you, by the way, just didn't have much left to even tap on? Okay. Well, that's interesting. We seem to have gotten more results the first round of imaginary tapping than we did with physical tapping. I'm just pointing that out. I didn't know what we were going to have. There's a question you haven't asked me yet. So anybody who's having a thought and has a question for me, would you ask it? There's a question I've been expecting. I don't know how long. Marilyn has a question.
Why aren't you including the collarbone point?
Well, that's one of the questions. There's another question, too. And I will tell you that in a minute, but there's another question, too. What else are we not including? Well, we haven't done this, and we haven't done the 9 gamut. Okay, what we have done, this is a reversal thing, and we could do that. Okay, we haven't done the 9 gamut either, have we? From the beginning of this, from when we first started imagining it to now, how many of you have had noticeable results in the physical discomfort? Let's see hands. Okay, raise them high, please. Okay, that's how many have not? How many have? Let's see a few hands there. Okay, we have roughly an 80% success ratio, approximately, if you call success a noticeable change. We did not tap on the collarbone point at any time, did we? Imaginary or otherwise. We did not tap or do the 9 gamut right here, okay? Nor did we tap on any of the fingers. For those of you who are familiar, because I'm not familiar with these anymore, the individual TFT algorithms for inhalant things, one of the fingers is important. Which one is that? This one here? Okay. We never tapped there, did we? Okay. Here, one of the things we need to do this weekend is to take a look very critically at all of the existing theories. Mine, Callahan's, other people who are doing this. Because if we want to go forward, we're going to have to take a look critically at some of the beginning theories. And one of the things about science, which is the beautiful thing about it, is that somebody gets a great idea, and so they have a theory about it. And somebody else comes along and says, that's a great idea, but I do something different with it. I've got to change the theory to make the theory now fit this new thing that we have. And then this new finding we have, and then somebody else builds on that, somebody else builds on that. I use the example of the Model T Ford. I mean, Henry Ford did a marvelous, marvelous, marvelous thing developing the Model T so that every mass producer, so everybody could have one, so to speak. But if we left the improvement and the innovation in the automobile to Henry Ford, we may still be having Model Ts, right? Everybody has built onto that from that point to this point, and we have cars that make the Model T look. I mean, we turn our nose up at the Model T, even though the Model T, compared to walking, compared to riding horses, compared to riding bicycles, is a marvelous, marvelous, marvelous move. But since we're on the ground floor of a healing high-rise, we need to take a look at it. Now, one of the prevailing theories is that there are a series of individualized algorithms that are important and quite useful in being able to assess or generate healing in a variety of areas. And one of those is the algorithm for pain, which is to tap here, or first of all to tap here 30 or 50 times, which we did not do at all, then to tap here, then to tap here, then to do the 9 gamut, then to tap here 30 or 50 times, then to tap here, then to tap here 30 or 50 times, right? Did we do that? Did we get results? Yeah, pretty much across the board, roughly 80%. Even doing it in a seminar setting. So you have to ask the question, how important is the individual algorithm? Who uses the individual? I'm curious. I mean, who uses the individual? Who uses this for just pain? Somebody must. Most of you are TFC trained, or many of you are. Okay. Did you give the microphone to Jane? Or Bruce, that's okay. Jane, when you use it, what kind of percentage results do you get?
I get excellent results with it.
Okay, like 80%, 90%, 100%?
I'd say 90%.
Okay. Why don't you give it to Bruce?
I don't use I embed the standardized pain algorithm with a few other sequences that I've experimented with. And I get probably about 50% to 60% results.
Okay. All right. Who else is using the pain algorithm that can tell us what you've been doing with it? Over here with Larry.
I use it some of the time, not all the time. So I play with EFT. That works sometimes. Sometimes if it's not working fast enough, I'll try that. Sometimes it will help. I couldn't tell you how effective the algorithm is on its own. I will do diagnostic stuff, and that sometimes helps. So I just use whatever of the approaches seem to speak to the need at the moment.
Sure.
But I've certainly seen it help. There's no question it will help.
Oh, there's no question about the individual algorithms. They have been responsible for tremendous healing across the board.
Right, and I've seen the other work too. So I'm at this place of, okay, lots of different ways. I'm not sure which is what. I'm not sure why yet.
And that may be one of the points, because we want to take a look at some of the existing theories and see which of them we're supposed to give sacredness to and which one we don't. And that's going to be an individual decision. Okay. My only point here is we dealt with a whole room full of physical discomforts, got noticeable results, and never once used any of those points. That doesn't mean that if you use those points, you wouldn't get more specific and even better percentage results. I don't know that.
See, I'm sure we'll talk about this throughout the weekend, but the question is whether with someone, first of all, we really don't know how conclusive the results are we have even here.
That's right.
I mean,
sure.
It's impressive that anybody has any change.
Of course, yeah.
Really, when you think about it, that's impressive. But we don't know how long it will last. We don't know how comprehensive it is.
Of course.
And the question for me is not really anymore, although it's still amazing, that we can get any result. Now I take for granted it's likely I'm going to get a result using any number of approaches. The question is, what about when I'm not getting results?
Yes.
Then does it make any difference, say, to go back and do an algorithm as a model? Does that add anything? Or will doing diagnostic testing add something? And that's what's really interesting me. Okay, let's say we get 80% success, which is amazing. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say of those 80%, that 50% really have lasting results. That's also amazing.
Stunning.
Yeah, stunning, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So then there's 50%, that we're not...
Awesome, there we go.
50% that we're not quite sure how to get to the rest of the journey.
Yes.
And that I really don't know. That I think sometimes, well, maybe there is some specificity here that I'm lacking, either by doing EFT or by doing the algorithm or by the diagnostic stuff that I know. That's the question that's kind of, jumping in my head.
Well, we're going to be opening lots of doors here and lots of avenues. And again, I'm not going to show anybody the way to do anything. But we're certainly going to open doors and start looking at some things critically, including stuff that I've believed in the past and so on. We're just going to take a look at all that. We're going to take it apart. We're going to build on that. We're going to show some new ways to do things, and so on. Anybody else been using the individualized? Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I think my experience here is kind of relevant because I was tapping on tapping for an injury that I had fallen in the bathtub and I pulled the ligaments in all around my rib cage.
Yes.
And I've been tapping for that and using the regular standard procedure and getting no results at all. And I've known that, I'm saying, okay, I know I had the injury. I fell really hard. It's going to hurt. I know it's going to hurt. My thought fields are all organized around it hurting and it being there and it lasting. And I've tried to forgive myself for that and work around it, but I haven't been able to move it. What moved it was the thought, I think the change in the thought field that came from the affirmations. Even though I've done something to contribute to this, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Then it moved.
Well, here we have one more question here, Jennifer. Could we?
I also think the belief that you have, one of the things that Susan was saying is that all of her belief was that she was going to feel this pain and so forth. So not only the intention, but the belief systems around the injury seem to keep it in place. So the minute that starts to shift, then it seems like there's a shift. The other thing that I've noticed here is that what is the effect of the group itself? The energy of the group itself.
There's a group intention going on here.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
And I don't know how to measure that either, but that's also an effect.
Exactly.
No question about that. No question about that. Go ahead, Lillian.
The thing that I've noticed in my patients at home, most specifically, is when they burst into tears when they're doing the affirmation, or have a lot of difficulty saying the affirmation, I'm going to get the best possible results.
It's almost like the system now gives, and this is a phrase I like to use now with the term psychological reversal, like they've given permission. It's like the system, psychological reversal to me is a form of the system not giving permission to go ahead. I think the term permission is an important term. And a lot of times, how many of you have the experience that people, they will just don't want to say it, they will cry, everything else, and once they've said it, then we have some results. Is this correct? How many have had that experience? I want to give you a little story. I've said this before in other seminars, but I'm going to say it here. This is an example. This was one that, and I think I have it reasonably correct. Is this too echoey? Can we turn this down, little John? Is it down now? Okay. This is a story that Dr. Callahan tells, and I hope I have the essence of it accurate, if not the exact words. He was dealing with a little boy, roughly 11, 12 years old, whose problem was he would soil his pants. Okay? And so Roger would have him say the affirmation, even though I dirty my pants or I soil my pants, I deeply completely accept myself. And they weren't making much headway. It's like they were making no headway. Several sessions, as I recall it. And one day Roger had the little boy say the following: even though I shit my pants, I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay? Ooh! Little boy didn't want to say that. Tears, as I recall the story. But once he said it, that gave permission somehow, or got psychological reversal out of the way, and bingo, here comes our result. Interesting. Okay? Very interesting. That's part of the art of this, and I don't know how scientists are ever going to be able to nail that one down and say what you should say or not say. I mean, there's a certain level of art here that goes on that I'm not going to do anything about, I don't think. But anyway, okay. Any other questions or comments on what we've done? Go ahead. Give this thing to Bruce here.
You know, I always have strongly believed that words have extreme power on people to heal or, of course, to cause emotional distress.
Even the word awesome.
Even the word awesome. And, you know, I find it, very interesting and curious. I'm trying to really understand this, that, recently, of course, Dr. Callahan has decided to remove the affirmations from the psychological reversal correction, which doesn't really sit very well with me because I find that to be such a very important part of the process. But I just wonder about, people's thoughts about that because, it seems that what happens when people get disturbed, words can do it. Words can cause disturbance, and certainly, as you said in the book, in your manual, that there's a disruption in the body's energy system as a result, but the correction of that disruption can be set forth or promoted by more than just tapping, I think.
Apparently, see, that's another thing we want to look at. See, we've been giving a tapping some sacredness in all this because that seems to be the thing that's doing it. But yet we can do it imagining it, and now we're seeing that certain kind of words or certain phraseology will also have some effect along with the tapping. I don't have the answer. We're opening doors. Okay. I don't have the answer. Back here to John, please.
As recently as last night, I was working with somebody, and it was such a good example. I won't go into it, but it was an example of how I think the language is so valuable because it points to how we're at odds with our problem. We have a problem with our problem. We shouldn't have it. We resent it. But the wonderful thing that I get about the affirmation is we're lining ourselves up with the problem. This is how it is, and that statement seems to be tremendously powerful when I'm working with people. It's like they're not fighting a certain fact. I appreciate that very much.
Yes.
It's real helpful.
One more question, then we're going to take a break. Go ahead, Alexander.
I just want to see you run.
By the way, can we have a hand for Jennifer? She's really doing
I just wanted to comment, add to what you said about the power of the reversal, that statement. When initially we were doing the pain thing, I had a pain in my toe, and it actually came from kicking something. I thought I had a different pair of shoes on that I did have on.
Yes.
Unfortunately. And I had a lingering pain in that toe for a couple of months or something like that. And when we first did the imaginary tapping, it dropped slightly, but enough to notice, but not a big drop. I heard your affirmation, and then I went through, without your permission, unfortunately, and did my own...
How rude.
Yeah, it was. Did my own affirmation about loving and forgiveness for anything I may have done to contribute.
Yes.
And did that sort of in between the two imaginary tappings, and tested afterwards, and the pain dropped off. I didn't do any tapping, just that. And the pain dropped off to virtually zero.
Let's pay attention to that. I have been using varied affirmations, varied phraseology, etc., for the last 2 or 3 months, and the results are always high. I don't know which is higher, but I do notice they seem to move through things when we say the right words. And sometimes I'm guessing at the words, I'm using my intuition, but more often than not, when you're tuned in with your intuition, you're picking up the right phrases. We're going to take a break. I want to introduce you to Brian Foley. Brian is someone that I've never met physically before today, right?
Right.
A couple hours ago, maybe, something like that. And Brian called me on the telephone a month ago, something like that.
About a month ago, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, and he had somehow heard about the fact that I had this thing we were doing, and it was a comprehensive algorithm and so on. And as I recall the story, you had gotten Roger Callahan's tapes.
Right.
But you've never taken any training on level 1 or level 2 of the TFT or from Roger or anything else.
Right.
You took a look at those. I'm paraphrasing it for a minute. I'll get the thing to you in a second, but I just want to zip through this. But you decided on your own, independent of me or anybody else, that you could just put together some kind of an all-purpose algorithm routine
and
get results. which you've done,
Mhm.
and you're advertising in Psychology Today,
Right.
and so on and so forth. Okay. What I would like to have you do is just to briefly go through the algorithm, the routine that you've developed. By the way, your success ratio is?
It's comparable. I'd say it's about 90%.
Okay. All right. Why don't you talk, just tell us what it is as briefly as you can, because what I want to do is basically get the idea of what you're doing and then compare and contrast that with EFT, and then we can make some conclusions out of that.
Okay.
Right? So what is the routine you use?
All right. Well, the procedure, and again, I got interested. As soon as I got the Callahan material, I got interested, and I realized it was meridians, and I started to research meridians, and I'm just interested in those kinds of things, and other aspects of applied kinesiology. And I'll just run basically through the algorithm, if you can hold that. I just have people start by tapping in a counterclockwise way here for about 30 seconds. And I had gotten from a couple of sources that this is again supposed to align the polarity. It will make your system positive where it's supposed to be positive and negative where it's supposed to be negative. Occasionally you have people who clear before they're finished with this.
You mean the issue is done by the time they're finished doing that?
That happens
Okay,
occasionally. Rarely,
but
but it does happen.
Okay.
And then I realized I always had trouble finding my tender spot.
Yes.
And when I heard it was a lymph drainage point, I went looking for other lymph drainage
interesting.
points, and there are at the base of the skull in the back, and so they were easier to find, so I thought, well, I'll try these. This was all trial and error. I would just do it and see if it worked. And it worked. It just
Now,
seemed
you
to
rub
work.
them?
Rub them.
Let me interject something. I had a call, I don't know, maybe a year, 6 months ago or so, by a fellow, forgot his name now, from Oregon, who said, Gary, I want to tell you something. I'm like all excited. You know, he says, did you ever tap at the occipital lobe? You know, back. I said, no. Where is it? He says, well, it's back here. He says, I had a problem and I tapped there, and the whole thing went away. Okay, new tapping point, folks. I think these tapping points are all over the body, of course.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
but it's interesting for him. That was a major thing for him because he just felt like he should tap there, and he did, and his issue went away. But anyway, continue. So you rub back there
So
for the
rub
lymphatic.
back there, and I would have people say, I completely love and accept myself even though I have this problem. I completely love and accept myself. And then I would have them say, I completely love and accept myself even if I don't get over this problem. And again, would find it difficult. People would have real problems saying that sometimes. And whenever that occurred, I knew we were in good shape. And that would be the setup. And then I'll just run through it. I just have people tap right at the base of the nose.
Let me interject something here. Another lady, quite independently of me, and this was about 10 or 11 years ago, also developed, his name is Pat Carrington, also developed a comprehensive algorithm she's been using for 10 or 12 years, 11 years, whatever it is. And she also taps at the gum line, she calls it, on either side of the nose. I don't know why. You want to give us a reason?
Right, the side of the nose. Again, just trying things and trying other points on meridians that I knew were being used by Dr. Callahan. That was it at first.
Well, he was using these points?
He wasn't using those
okay.
points, but they're part of the same meridian.
Yes,
I just started
okay.
looking at meridians and trying to find
Sure.
trying to find points. So we tap here first and then here. And I forget the names of the meridians, but there are a couple. If you tap actually with fingers like this, you're actually engaging a couple of meridians. That was another thing I wanted to do, was to try to get as many meridians involved as possible. Okay, that was the second. And then the inside corner of the eye.
Which is bladder 1, by the way. The eyebrow is the second point on the bladder meridian. This one here is bladder 1.
Right, and then the outside corner of the eye. I use that as well. And then I knew that, what is it, conception, vessel, and governing, that those were very central, very important, and I wanted to incorporate those. And I would actually have people just tap right at the sternum here, and they just tap right up, and end, under, and then over.
Okay.
And, yeah, just tapping right at the sternum. Again, because there are so many meridians that are connected closely into this area, and I usually do it with a hand like a cup,
and just tapping up, just all the way up, and then ending under the lip, and then over the lip. And then the last point is right here. And this is from a book. I had gotten a book on PowerPoints.
Okay.
And this was a powerful point for relieving anxiety. It's right in the little junction in there, all right, towards the outside of the wrist, right at the base of the hand.
Is that different from the nausea point?
Different from what?
The nausea point. That's
Yeah, the nausea point is here, is it not? Am I right about that? Oh, it's down. Oh, you're right. It's down further where you wear those boat things, right?
The inner ear.
And I found for myself and lots of people I would use this particular point seemed to, if there was going to be a noticeable shift that occurred at one point, this seemed to be the one.
Okay. Hold this for a second, would you? Which gives me an opportunity here. He's talking about what I call your point. Quite often I'll have people do this, and I will ask them the question, or this is the EFT algorithm, and I'll ask them the question, when you're doing this, does any one of those points seem to give you some relief compared to the others? And often they'll say, well, yes, this one, or they'll say, yes, this one. These tend to be the two most prevalent ones. And I call those your point. Now what you're doing is, because you're having to tap other places, their point will be
some
other place right here. Yeah. But quite often I find that there is, and I've never done this before, I just put this out for you to practice if you wish. When your client tells you there's a certain point that they somehow go, with, see if you can get the result just tapping on that point only. I'm just curious about that. Okay, that might make your process with that one client extraordinarily elegant, by the way, one point, you know. And I think that will probably happen in a few of your cases. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's the basic sequence. So I would go through that sequence. And I remember you asking me on the phone if I used the gamut, and rarely. For a gamut, I would just have them tap on the outside of the little finger, which I think is still triple warmer meridian, and just of the ring finger, and just roll the eyes, and then turn the head and roll the eyes, turn the head in the other way and roll the eyes, because again I had heard that by doing that you are engaging both, hemispheres.
Yeah, when I learned the 9 gamut, it was to keep your head steady. That was the requirement. You keep your head steady when you move your eyes.
Right. While you were moving. Well, you always. Yeah. I have people keep their head steady when they're moving their eyes, but their head is turned.
Oh, okay.
And then they're doing it.
All right.
And it seemed to go very fast, and then.
Just run through that whole thing.
Sure. Okay. I just have them start by just tapping in the counterclockwise around the thymus gland here. Right. Pardon? I do this first.
Can you turn this way?
Sure. Actually, why don't I stand up and, okay? Can everybody see?
And where's Jennifer? Would you mind holding this for him on the other side?
Your circle is smaller than it was?
Well, it's as long as it's around that, the thymus point, where your Dr. Diamond's, I guess, point, right, where there's a little protuberance a couple of inches down from the hollow of the throat, and behind that is the thymus gland. And just tapping in a counterclockwise circle around that. Yeah, above as well as below, about I guess 3 inches in diameter or so. And then either one or both of the points just at the base of the skull, which always just felt really good to me. And they're easy to find. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
They're easy to have people find. Okay, while saying, even though I have this problem, I completely love and accept myself twice, and then even though I have this problem, even if I don't get over this problem, I completely love and accept myself. Okay, and then the first point of my sequence was right here. And again, this can be done one side or the other side. It doesn't, okay.
Focusing on the problem?
Focusing on the problem.
Do you use, like we use a reminder phrase? We'll say this problem. You don't do that.
Is a great addition to
but you haven't done that? Okay.
No, I would be keep on the problem, keep focusing on the problem, and the reminder phrase is much more elegant than the way I was doing. But yeah, keeping them focused on the problem was the essential part of the thing. Okay, and then in the groove here, again, one side or the other, you can tap it this way.
By the way, this will all be on your tapes, too, so I mean, you can take extensive notes if you wish, but...
Yeah, just right here. Okay. Tapping the inner bridge of the nose, right at the inside corner of the eye, and then once again the outside corner of the eye. Okay, and then from the sternum, just tapping up, 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 and ending at the over the upper lip. Okay, and then the last point is the wrist, I guess the outside edge of the wrist, just beneath the base of the hand.
By the little finger, not by the thumb.
By the little finger. By the little finger.
It's not the innergate. The innergate's here. The innergate's in your wrist. We'll talk about innergate a little bit later.
Right. And, yes.
Have you got the other... Well, no, we need to get the microphone back to him. So you and I can use this one.
In the same spirit of exploring and energizing the system, have you mixed up the order, or?
I've mixed up the order. I mean, I sort of experimented.
Sounds like you've done a lot of
immediately
experimenting.
with Dr. Callahan's algorithms, and I would use the anxiety algorithm because it seemed to incorporate anything that was in the other algorithms that I had from the tapes.
Sure.
And would experiment with it, and I found, to me, I can't honestly say that I ever found, maybe in one case, sequence actually seemed to make a difference.
You mean the order of the sequence?
The order. It just did not seem to make a difference at all. And that's really when I decided I'm going to really experiment with this.
So do you do the order, you use the order that you're describing here just because it's convenient, you're familiar with it? Or do
I'm familiar with it, it's convenient.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And as is well known with what I'm doing, you can do the EFT one upside down, backwards, you know, you can imagine it. You know, order doesn't make that make much difference. We got one more question here from. Well, we got to wait.
Again, did you say you start by correcting the reversal, the setup, or not?
It's so easy to fix. I just always assumed reversal, and just went for it.
Okay. Where is Sandy Radofsky? Where are you? Oh, there you are, right here in front of me. Okay. Would you give her the microphone for a second? You and I spoke on the phone, and as I recall it, you had mentioned to me that you were doing the trauma algorithm.
Right.
And what you decided to do, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you try to do eventually is just to use that for everything.
I use that for everything, and it worked beautifully. I basically did the trauma algorithm, the extended trauma algorithm, and it's been so long since I've used it, I don't
Well, I can tell you what it is because I wrote it down, okay? Otherwise I wouldn't know what it was. Where are we? It's eyebrow, under the eye, under the arm, collarbone, baby finger, collarbone,
little finger,
index finger,
and
collarbone. Eyebrow point, under the eye, under the arm, collarbone point, baby finger, collarbone point, index finger, collarbone point. Now, something I would like to suggest, and something I have been saying for a long time, and it still is my view, although I am not stuck on any view like this. It's just my view. The thing that we have in common, what Sandy uses, what Brian uses, and what I use as comprehensive algorithms, all have one thing in common. They tap all over the energy system on lots of different places. And it's always been my view, and I'm more than happy to have it corrected, because as far as I'm concerned, anything that my view is as vulnerable to question as anybody else's. But my view is, since the energy system is so intertwined and so all pervasive, you tap on a few well-placed points, and you're basically sending energy meridians down, or energy down all the meridians, and hence balancing thing. Order makes no difference whatsoever, at least in practice. There may be some theoretical reasons for that, but at least in practice I don't see that. So that's what yours has in common with mine. If you were here 2 weeks from now, you would hear Larry Nims, who quite independently of me had another algorithm, who's also getting 90% results. He's been doing it for years. He's thrown away the 9 gamut totally, and is still getting the result. And it's a different one than you have, a different one than I have, but it still taps all over the energy system. Interesting.
this is fun because I get to ask all the questions that,
Sure.
you know. The meridian system is a highly articulated system, right? And there's 300-something, who knows how many points there are. I don't even know. But where can you tap that isn't on a meridian?
I don't know. That's an interesting
No, the
question.
reason is because, right, one of the criticisms is, okay, if it's not precise and the order doesn't matter, then, okay, then you can tap anywhere on meridians. So what about sham tapping, right? Everyone hears about sham tapping. I'm starting to think, well, where can we tap that isn't going to activate the system?
I hear that all the time. It's
Yeah.
like, in fact, people come to me and say, well, Gary, we need to have all these scientific studies done, etc. What they always want to do, almost invariably they'll say to me, well, let's do a study where we tap where you say, and then let's do a study where we tap any place, as though that's going to tell them something. And it may tell them something, I don't know what. If they get the same results, I don't know if they're going to say that makes EFT bad and random good, if we're still getting results. I don't know. I picked up EFT only because it just made logical sense to me. Why not just tap on a number of meridians that are easy to find? Let's tap on enough of them, so we're probably let's practice it a while and see what happens. Bingo, here's the results. And now we're all sitting here wondering why. Lee.
One thing that we overlook is we're dealing with a scalar energy, a non-Hertzian energy, which is very subtle, that responds to thought. There are studies out now where the belief system of the experimenter can push data all over the place.
Indeed.
Now, aren't we talking about our own belief systems here? Because when I first started off after training with Roger, 3-4 years ago, I used a basic eye, arm, collarbone, and I got 90% results.
Okay.
Then, as my beliefs have been changing, having been exposed to your work and now to yours, I suspect that that's what's going to potentiate the healing is our own belief system.
If I may rephrase that into intention, which is what we're going to hear from Dr. William Tiller tomorrow, I think we're going to find intention has a great deal to do with it. And frankly, just because I started off with the EFT algorithm being all the way down the fingers, all the meridians. Only one I didn't do was the liver meridian because that was socially awkward for women to tap. So I skipped it. Didn't make any difference. Except for one case that I ran into, which I put on the internet. I was making no headway with this gal. She said she had a liver problem, so I had her tap on the liver, and then she said she got some results. So I'm not saying these are basic truths across the board. Go ahead.
This is a little bit awkward because I'm getting ready to run a pilot study through the university I'm attached to. And of course, if it's my belief system that's going to potentiate the results, which algorithm do I believe in most?
I don't know. I don't know. But I started doing it all the way, and when I said, well, okay, let's just skip the fingers, and we're still getting the results. And earlier today I said, let's just do this pain thing, and let's skip this point. We still get results. Now, if I had one-on-one with somebody, I'd get better results still. But that was in an audience. We're still getting results. How much can you skip? I don't know. But you will find, as we're going to go through, I'm going to talk about more elegant ways to do this and ways to shorten this down and so on in a bit. You're hitting some good points. Go ahead, Rob.
I just wanted to say one thing is that quantum physicists have observed that when we look at a certain particle of matter, our observation changes the way that piece of matter moves.
Yes.
And it isn't just that I don't think intention is enough to describe what's happening. I think we can throw out different pieces, but there's maybe what we're finding is a critical mass of something that we're bringing together, and what we're trying to do is sort through the different pieces at this point. Yep. And I welcome your experimentation and see if you can just do it with your beliefs. But my hunch is beliefs alone aren't significant. In my clinical work with people, I have people say, I don't believe this is going to work, and I'm saying, fine, great, we're going to do it anyway and see what happens, and we get results.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about with the tapping, we can have total non-believers and still get results. Okay, I don't think we could get these results with our intention if our technique was instead of tapping an energy system or balancing it in some fashion, if we were instead to say, well, drink a glass of water, and that was our technique, and then we, with our intention, said, okay, phobia, go away. I don't think we're going to do that. So there's some combination, I think, with our intention on the energy system with the aid of tapping, balancing, however we want to put that
I'd just like to make one point. This comes from my personal experience as a client in process as well as doing this work. And we tend to speak about energy and the energy system as if it were energy, as if it were the energy that comes out of the wall or something. And I've come to the belief that really what we're dealing with, it's consciousness. This energy is consciousness. We are individuated consciousness out of the whole, infinite realm. And I think basically that what we're doing with the tapping and the clearing the blockages and so forth, I noticed that people in the one case on the tapes of the woman on the audio tape who literally came together as a person. The more of this work that's done, the more together people are, the less egotistical they are, the less fragmented they are. And what I think really is happening here is an integration of consciousness. If you want to call it energy, fine, so that we return to that wholeness, that whole individuation that decided to be us this time around, as opposed to just energy as electrical energy or mechanical energy.
Sure. Go ahead. One more question from Lee, and then I'm going to...
I agree with you. I think, energy is really information, which is, in a way, what you can interpret consciousness. But the work of Upledger adds another variable here. Upledger is responsible for developing craniosacral therapy, and in the last 3 volumes of Subtle Energies, a marvelous journal, by the way, he describes his work where he hooked up himself and a patient to electrodes. Very defensive patient. The electrical resistance on the surface of her skin was 3 million ohms. The electrical resistance on his skin jumped to 3 million ohms. As he began working with her and she began opening up, it went down. And finally, it got down to about 300,000 ohms, which is what most electrical resistance on our skin is, except for acupressure points, which drop to about 12 to 14,000 ohms. So there's another variable here. If you've got someone whose electrical resistance is putting up a shield of about 3 million ohms, and that reflects on us, these are other variables that we haven't even begun to look at yet.
And may I interject there, because that's a nice little segue to the possibility of our intuition coming in. The person who can get the same, 300,000 or 3 million ohms or whatever it was, but the patient, that's what you said? Okay. That's an area of somebody tuning into somebody else. Could you give the microphone to Peggy Olson a second? Peggy, you and I had a conversation on the phone, which I'd like to plug in with you. But you told me, I believe you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, that oftentimes when you're dealing with a patient, you will literally feel energetically when they are making their change.
Yes, when she was tapping, and I don't even remember what point it was at, but I could just feel it leave her body. And I asked her afterwards what happened, and at exactly the point that she said, and she used the exact words, she said, well, it just went right through my body and went right out my feet, and it went right at this point. And I said, I could feel that one too, and I've had it happen quite often. The thing is, they are tapping, and I am tapping with them, so I'm really in their energy system, and it's happened quite often that I will just feel immediately when it goes.
Yes. And one of the things I am beginning to develop myself, which is somewhat a parallel to that, is when I'm doing intuitive, or for that matter surrogate diagnosis, I'm putting in my mind's eye up here. For you NLP people, it happens to be in the upper left up here, where it belongs. A thermometer. And if the thermometer is full, they're at an 8 or a 10 or something like that. And if it's bouncing on the bottom, we're pretty much done with the process. Sometimes I'll say 3 or 4 thermometers. But that's a metaphor that I'm using. You feel it, I see it. It's interesting. But we'll develop that a little bit more as we go on. Can we have a hand for Brian, please? Thank you, Brian. For now, I want to just have you each experience one exercise with me, if you will. And this is something I've run across recently, which I found quite helpful. Often we have a difficult time, not often, sometimes we have a difficult time getting to what the issue is with the client. Sometimes the client will come to you and they won't even know how to articulate what the issue is. Or sometimes they seem to be repressing and they're talking around what the issue is. And you need to find some way to get to the issue. And I often will do that with some kind of a physical thing. I'll ask them, how's their neck and what's going on here, there, and we'll start tapping on that. And then bingo, after a while, they'll say, oh, well, and then they'll start articulating what the emotional issue is. It's sort of, I don't know, we start tapping it, it bubbles up the surface and comes out their face, okay? In recent times, I have found a rather easy way, from a physical point of view, to start getting, making entry into that, and that has to do with your breath, taking a deep breath. It turns out many people have a physical constriction in their breath in that they are not able, if they take a deep breath, to take it all the way in. They come somewhat short of their potential. Now, I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute, but what I'd like to have you do just to practice for a minute is to take a deep breath with me, but I don't mean just going to like that. I mean really take it in, okay? And so with me, okay, ready? And let it out. Okay. Now, I'll have you do that in a moment. I'm not going to do it right away because I don't want you to hyperventilate at all. But the reason I'm going to have you do it a couple of times first is it's something like, when you move your arm or something like that. The first time you move it, you can feel a little pain, but then you move it again, you can go a little farther because you're kind of conditioning the muscle a little bit. Same with your breath. I want to get to the point where we're getting to a real constriction, not a temporary constriction. Okay, so let's take a deep breath again. Okay. Now, in a minute, we're going to do it again. But what I'd like to have you do this time, and you're going to have to use your intuition about this because you probably have never been asked to do this before, is I'm going to have you take a deep breath, but then notice, is your breath you take in a full 10, and a 10 being the most potential that you could possibly have? Are your lungs really filling up, or is there some kind of constriction? If there's a constriction, then you'd want to call your breath a 7, or a 5, or an 8, or whatever number you want to give to it on a SUDS level. Okay? So if you're 10, you're 10. If you're something other than that, fine. But I'm going to have people raise their hands to see how many are something less than a 10. Okay? All right, with me now? Okay, now just notice what that is. Assign a number to that. And how many are less than 10? Have some constriction. Just hold your hands up. I just want to get a rough percentage. Okay, looks like 50%. Does that sound about right? About 50%? Something like that. About 50. Okay, put your hands down. All right. Now, interestingly enough, while in this group setting, we're not going to be able to do all this and have people come up with emotional issues and stuff. That is not the point here. But we are going to do some tapping, on that breath, so you can notice what happens. By the way, even if you're not able to scare up an emotional issue to deal on, this is a great kinesthetic way to have the client start recognizing the power of this. So they don't sit there and say, well, this is silly stuff, because they will literally be able to breathe more deeply and quickly, and it's a very kinesthetic, oh my goodness, I've seen that with some frequency now. So anyway, right here, even though I have this constricted breath, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I have this constricted breath, I deeply and completely accept myself. And I let go of all my own contribution to it. And even though it represents stuff that I don't even want to face, I deeply and completely accept myself. I love and forgive myself for my contribution to it, and for that of my mother, my father, my uncles, my brothers, and everybody else who did me in. You make it up, okay? That seems like a facetious comment, but it's not. I do make it up. I do make it up when I'm dealing with, and you'll see that as we have individual sessions going on. I'll often make it up because it seems right to say it. And more than often than not, if you'll follow that, you'll be on point. Okay, not always, but you'll be on point often enough. But anyway, now take a deep breath and notice if your number is still the same. Okay, ready? Okay. Now, how many of you noticed an improvement? I'm just curious. Okay. That's roughly 35 or 40%, which is a roughly 70 or 80% of the people on one round that noticed some change. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I only did one tapping point with the audience. I just had to do the reversal correction with a few affirmations. This is the only place that we tapped. We did not do the sequence. That was a mistake on my part. I really didn't intend that. And what was interesting to me is not only did we get the result, like 70% or so of the people that had constricted breathing noticed an improvement in their breathing. Not only did I not notice that, but nobody in the audience picked it up either. I don't know why that is. Yet only 1 point did the job here. That's just an interesting observation I'll put in front of you. Also, the restricted breathing technique that we just demonstrated here, or are demonstrating, is very useful. You'll see it used several times throughout the sessions on these subsequent tapes. Anybody want to comment on what their change was? Like it was amazing or just slight or something like that? Brave Jane will tell us about her breath.
Well, it felt constricted the first time, even though I did take a deep breath, and a tightness in my body as I was taking it. And this time I felt like I got more air in, but the major thing was that it felt free and easy and could just flow in, sort of.
Yes. And the interesting thing about it, you do this 2 or 3 times with your clients. Those skeptical clients who don't want to do this dumb thing, they'd rather have real therapy, okay? I've done this probably 15 times or so, and I bet you 12 or 13 of the times I go, wow. I mean, they literally go, wow, you know. And so I found that very helpful. I think you'll find that helpful, too, if you do that with your clients, those who you think need some kinesthetic reminders or evidence. Over here to Gloria, please.
9 out of 10. But when we were doing the tapping, an issue floated by like that. And that was like the one. So then just, I think just knowing it was like, okay, there it went.
Oh, okay. All right. But the interesting thing is, when you start dealing with the physical, I've oftentimes seen the emotional, it'll pop up, it'll identify itself.
Right,
I don't know why.
When you said you might have an issue,
Yeah.
I had no issue.
Yeah, sure.
But then a little one popped up.
It's my guess on that what we're doing, every time we deal with a physical symptom of any kind, and I had you create one through your breath because you didn't know it was there, that when you're dealing with that, you're really dealing with the emotional cause of that. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. I've used that logic for a long period of time, and it keeps working for me. So I'm continuing to use it. Okay. Any questions about that? If not, we're going to take a break.